Hi guys, Grant Nelson again here with the Mustache Offgrid YouTube channel. In case you're new to the channel, if you have any topics you'd like me to cover, I'll put my email in the video on the bottom somewhere around here. And you guys are welcome to email the channel with any topics or discussion or just anything you're interested in. As long as it's legal and kosher and everything like that, respectable. Don't be sending me a bunch of spam and junk like that. Anyway, today I just wanted to talk about some stuff going on in the world. You know, sometimes it's just good to vent a little bit. And you know, I've been seeing a lot of videos online, and you know, a lot of people just crying about the Epstein files. They're actually crying, actual tears. It looks like, anyway. I mean, who knows? Wind was blowing some stuff back there. It seemed like there might have been an animal, but I don't think there was. But people online, oh wow, there is. There's an armadillo back there. Just went under there. Yeah. All right, back to the video. Make sure you guys are trusting your senses. Anyway, but there's a lot of people online with a lot of drama about the Epstein files, and as far as it goes, people are acting like, oh, blah blah blah, you know, crying about it. Donald Trump's bad. Pam Bondi's evil, bad. They're all bad and evil, and they could be right. Some of them could be right, and but I was listening to some influencer, I don't remember the name, talk about it, and they were crying about how disgusting this stuff was, and they were reading the files, and they talked about, at some point in the video, they talked about going to the store and shopping and a bunch of stuff like that. And it's like, it kind of just made me laugh at how disconnected from reality people are. There's this illusion that everyone's proper, their collars are all perfect, their ties and their shirts are all clean, and you know, and that basically just everything just operates, the world just goes round and round, and there's never going to be any and before 2020, I will say that everything did operate that way. There's a certain thing where people have put their faith in the system, and the system can mean a lot of different things. The political system, the economic system, you know, the laws, the state laws, the federal laws, the county laws, the different non-for-profit organizations, the system, the American system, Western civilization, where people don't live in teepees and tents. They go to the store and buy their food. They have a 9-to-5 job. The Pledge of Allegiance. You know, just civilized society is really what the system is. It's not just one thing or the other. And for many years growing up, you know, I'm a young guy. I'm only 32. Many years growing up, you could put your faith and your trust in the system. You could expect that when you went to work, you know, you were going to keep your job and everything was just going to keep rolling. You could expect that a dozen eggs were going to cost you 50 cents or so. I used to buy 5 dozen for $5 in 2019. As far as it goes, you could put some trust that those things were going to be available, that your gallon of milk was going to cost $1 or $2 and it was going to be available, and not be dosed up with hormones, and you could trust that the food was quality, and that it was going to be affordable. You could trust that your cars, you know, basically, I mean, I guess you haven't really been able to trust cars for a while, but you know, they're talking about putting the automatic kill switches in vehicles where the government can just shut them off if you're a domestic terrorist or they deem you a threat. Maybe even if they just don't like your speech. You know, they say, oh, it's just going to be used by law enforcement for stopping criminals. If you believe you can trust law enforcement, the rabbit hole goes deep as far as the system goes. All the different systems in place, there's more than one. And I talk about going off grid and creating your own systems, taking control of your food, taking control of your water, taking control of your shelter, taking control of your entertainment, and enjoying your life and not being reliant on others for your well-being. And I'm okay with relying on others for your well-being, but the fact of the matter is the system, all the systems combined as one system, are less and less reliable. And in my opinion, it all started with COVID. The medical system became unreliable, the supply chain became unreliable, the politicians became unreliable, law and order became unreliable, everything became unreliable during COVID. It shook the world, and you heard a lot of people using the term, a lot of elites very specifically, the new normal. And as far as it goes, people were pissed about that. They were mad that people were using this term, the new normal. And yet 70% of the US population took the COVID vaccine mandate, COVID vaccine. Now granted, I think that I'm not going to get into that whole rabbit hole of that, but the fact is 70% of the US population took it. And part of it was there was people that took it that didn't even want to take it. They took it because it was mandated and they wanted to keep their employment. Then you had the elections, and there was the whole question mark on election fraud, and whether that was true or false, or what you want to believe on that, that's up to you. But I think a lot of people had some doubt. That trust, that faith that your elections were going to be perfect was gone. All the systems had become less and less reliable, is my point. You could point to any system, food system, medical system, economy, the politicians, the law enforcement, and it seems to me like they've all become less and less reliable. And there's corruption in law enforcement, talking about that kill switch. I'm not saying that all of them are corrupt. I support law and order, and I support law enforcement, especially the ones that do their jobs and don't take bribes and are good law enforcement officers, and they're clean people that just want to make a difference in society. However, whenever you give someone authority, it tends to not usually be the person that should have the authority. In my opinion, that's an opinion. But usually the people seeking authority and seeking power and seeking control rise to those positions in management, in government, in anything. People that want the power will go to it, because the people that don't want it, that are probably would be a better candidate for the position, don't seek it. They don't seek to be in charge of people. Talking about this faith, you know, all these systems becoming less and less reliable, there's only two things that you can really trust. You can trust yourself, and you can trust God. And those are that's the truth of it. I have got to the point in my life, you can hardly trust if you go into a building or somewhere that when you flip a light switch, it's going to come on. And if you've got that kind of trust and that kind of confidence, bless you. You know, I wish I could be there right now, because once you realize that the faith of society, civilization, the system is gone, you can hardly trust turning a light switch on. Or when you pump your gas at the gas pump, are you going to have exactly a gallon? You know, you trust that it's going to come out of the pump when you pump it, and it's not going to be water. Or that it's going to be a complete gallon and they're not giving you a quarter gallon or a third or a half. But regardless of that, I thought it was kind of interesting, you know, with my little rant here. I just got $1, one United States of America dollar right here. And speaking of everything going on with all these systems and this trust, the dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. No gold, no silver, no copper, as the original Constitution required by the Founding Fathers when it was written. Nixon took us off the silver in '72, but even then I don't think that all our dollars were backed by silver. I think only a fraction of them was. But one thing I wanted to point out to people, and you're hearing the word thrown around quite a bit, New World Order. If you see the pyramid on the dollar, I think you guys can probably see it. Let me just make sure you can see it here. The pyramid. And it says Novus Ordo Seclorum. And you know what that means? Novus Ordo Seclorum means New World Order in Latin. Isn't that interesting? New World Order on your dollar bill. And when this country was founded, there was a New World Order established, obviously. And you're hearing politicians use the same term over and over. And why the heck is there a pyramid on that dollar bill? You know, some people say it's a Freemasonry symbol or some other secret type of society. May very well be true. I do believe that the veil is starting to be lifted on some of that stuff, and the Epstein files were a start to that. Interestingly, you know, and this is something I don't hear people discuss a lot, is the fact that Epstein was a member of the Trilateral Commission. If you don't know what that is, it was founded back in the 70s. I know Warren Buffett was a big part of the original founding. But it's very similar to the Bilderberg Group, or the World Economic Forum, and a lot of the people in it attend the World Economic Forum as well. As far as it goes, he was a member of that with very little, in my opinion, when he became a member, experience. In fact, it's being said from some of the stuff I've heard that he was very friendly, buddy-buddy, kind of the right-hand man to David Rockefeller. So you look at some of these connections here, and how wild is that, right? How wild is that? And if you look into all the presidents and the relationship they have to secret societies, the Skull and Bones, other secret societies, Freemasons, the World Economic Forum. I mean, heck, we've got even governors and representatives of states going to the World Economic Forum. I think Gavin Newsom was there. How wild is that, you know? But as far as it goes, back to that, what I was talking about there, I was interested in some of that stuff, and I was reading a little bit, and I didn't really plan on getting into this aspect of the conspiracies in the video. Honestly, I really didn't plan on getting here, but Teddy Roosevelt, his father was basically like a friend of, I believe it was Grover Cleveland. I'll make sure it was the right president, and basically an advisor to him. In fact, at one point he was being considered to be an ambassador to a few different foreign countries. So that was the case. And Teddy Roosevelt then eventually ended up becoming president. His dad was obviously an elite, and he was in that circle with the former president. Every president since the Civil War, in my opinion, has some sort of business tie, family tie, connection in some way, which is kind of interesting. Instead of just being people that went out and started running for office and got elected. They all have different ties associated with them. FDR, the first socialist president, some of the stuff with that is absolutely crazy, that I was looking into, is a fifth cousin to Teddy Roosevelt, and they actually knew each other growing up. You know, they were acquaintances, but they have blood. I mean, like I said, they're fifth cousins, and that to me is kind of wild. The fact that you even know who your fifth cousin is sounds to me almost like royalty, you know, type of deal where you're keeping track of your royal bloodline. But I digress from that. And then you got George Herbert Walker Bush, member of the CIA. He becomes president in 1990. His son becomes president in 2000, 2001. Then you got Bill Clinton. You got Bill Clinton's wife running and in some high up positions in some organized in some in government. The family ties are the interesting thing that I'm getting at here. You've got JFK, and his father, Joseph Kennedy, was the first head of the SEC, and then his brother Robert Kennedy ran for office and got assassinated. And then now you've got Robert F. Kennedy Jr., head of the Food and Safety Division in the government. I forgot the name of it. Health and Human Services or something. HHS, yeah, Health and Human Services. But the ties in government, the family ties, the buddy ties, the business ties are quite interesting. If I ran for office, I don't believe that I would have any ties. And I don't believe I would win unless I took the money from the fat cats, because that's how it's done these days. But getting to all this, the show of it all, and that faith and credit that I was talking about with the dollar, and that faith in the system that people put, some people still have it. Some people, I think, with these Epstein stuff are starting to wake up right now and realize. I woke up in about 2019, 2020 during COVID. Some people woke up then. I think some people are waking up right now. They're just a little late. They're starting to realize that it's all fake and it's all a simulation to some extent. That's my opinion. Getting back to that faith and credit, I watched a bunch of videos. You know, you see a bunch of online memes and clickbait things, and Pam Bondi in front of Congress, and she starts talking about the Dow Jones hitting an all-time high. Dow Jones hits an all-time high. When people are asking her about the Epstein files, and actually fairly serious things, but at the same time, the questions she was getting were softball questions. And the only people asking questions were a few Republicans and mostly Democrats, actually. Some of the questions were good. Some of the questions were a joke. Some of the questions were speculative. That being said, why is our Department of Justice even talking about the Dow Jones? That's a good question to ask yourself. No reason she should be talking about the Dow Jones. But I actually watched the video of Congress. I didn't watch the whole thing because it's 4.5 hours, but I watched about 2.5 hours. I watched the section where she talked about the Dow Jones. I watched the section from start to getting to it where Thomas Massey was getting in an argument with her. And then I watched other senators just like talking with her and thank you Pam Bondi, you're doing a great job, and can you help our state, and this, that, and she says my door's always open if you want to come and talk with me in my office about personal matters to some of the senators. But the point I'm getting at is, watching it, Pam Bondi didn't seem authentic, and she hasn't been authentic from the beginning. The senators somewhat seemed authentic, but more than anything, what that was in there with her being questioned was not actual concern. It was a show for the public to make it seem like cause some sort of emotional discombobulation, and it was a show. In fact, all those senators in that room deserve Oscars, in my opinion. They should get Oscars for, I don't know, do they give Oscars for reality TV? Because that's honestly what it was when I was watching it in there. The questions she was getting asked were softball questions. They would interrupt when she was answering. I didn't think she did as bad as the news is portraying. But she obviously wasn't authentic, and neither were the people asking the questions. They were just trying to make it dramatic and make it emotional and trying to get things riled up. It wasn't about really actually caring, in my opinion. She was specifically brought in there to be yelled at and to make her look bad. That was why she was brought into that room originally, was for like a good cop, bad cop type of interrogation. And that's honestly what the Senate was doing in there, if you watch it. That being said, it was pretty embarrassing, but you know, I just like to do my own research on it. You see clips of things taken out of context, complaining about things, and you know, I think that watching it for myself, I think that they were correct. It was a joke. As far as her talking about the Dow Jones, what a weird answer it was for her to get into that rabbit hole. But it was just a simulation. It was just a TV show, just something for the American people to look back on and give clips when they're running their campaigns in the midterms. And a lot of things people were tying together that is what it is. But last night I got interested in this after watching it a little bit, and I said I'm going to get a list of all the names of everyone in the Epstein files that they've released. And so I typed in on Google, go on Google, and I type in all the names of everyone listed in the Epstein files, or something like that. Something like just everyone in the Epstein files, everyone listed in the Epstein files. I tried a couple different things, and nothing came up but a bunch of CNN and Fox News articles. You could scroll down and click, and you could go through about 10 or 20, and there was no list of names compiled. I clicked on Google AI mode. I figured, oh, Google AI might be able to come up with a list of all the names of everyone that's listed in the Epstein files. As much as everyone acts like AI is the smartest thing in the world, I said, well, maybe they'll be able to compile a list of all the names of every single name that was listed in the files. And the first thing Google AI says is, being named in the files does not mean that you're guilty of any crime or that you had any involvement with the Epstein or sex trafficking or any crimes or anything like that. Why does Google AI have to explain that context to me as if I'm 10 years old? That's censorship. That's just, the internet is censored and people don't even realize it. And I was like, yeah, obviously just being listed in the files does not implicate that you're a crime. I mean, some people just had one email, or he emailed them, or vice versa. I mean, that doesn't implicate someone of a crime. But I want to know every name in the files so I can go through them individually and look at them individually and figure out for myself if in my opinion, you know, if they were implicated or not. And after a good hour, 20 minutes of research, I finally found a Wikipedia page list of names in the Epstein files. Why wouldn't that pop up first? Because the internet's censored. It's showing you information that the FBI and the DOJ and the government wants you to see. We basically have censored internet almost like North Korea or China, to be honest with you guys. That being said, people don't believe that that's the case, but it is the case. Why is the FBI telling social media companies to take down the Hunter Biden laptop story? The list goes on of examples I could give. That's just one example, but the list goes on. But on this list, honestly, I read through every name in the Wikipedia article, and I was very surprised because it maybe gave me 50 names, maybe 100 names. And you're telling me in 3.5 million documents that they gave out, there's only 50 or 100 recipients and names that you can give out in that? That doesn't make any sense to me. The other thing that I wanted to point out that I was interested in, I said, how many senators in Congress, in the Senate or the House, governors of states, how many of them are listed in the files? None. Not one person in the House, not one person in the Senate. The closest thing was Justice Kavanaugh in the Supreme Court, and he said, and it wasn't even him. He never even contacted Epstein. It was just Epstein talking about how he respected Justice Kavanaugh and what he's going through with his allegations. That was all it was just him praising Justice Kavanaugh. It wasn't Justice Kavanaugh sending the guy an email, going to the island, nothing like that. The closest thing was either him or the representative from the U.S. Virgin Islands, where his island, St. James, was located, texting him during a congressional hearing when she was asking questions and how to ask him and what to ask. And that's a non-voting member of Congress, by the way, too. It surprises me that there's not one senator in there. And I have to ask, if you're watching this video and you're interested in what I'm talking about here, do you really believe there's not one Congress member out of about 300 to 400 representatives that he didn't maintain some sort of contact with, whether it be text message, email, a chat on the street in New York or something? I find that very hard to believe. I find that very hard to believe when he's talking with Prince Andrew, he's talking with prime ministers from countries. Former Prime Minister of Australia was in the documents. He was conversating with them. And then you've got other things that even add to the conspiracy. The founder of 4chan had some contact with him and met him for lunch one day when some of the conspiracies that were being put out about the island and the elites and all that stuff were originally on 4chan. And you want to know some wildness about conspiracy theories? Alex Jones was talking about the elites having an island where they go to do stuff with minors. He was talking about that 20 years ago. How are these people knowing this information 20 years back, and the FBI and the DOJ and all these guys are just knowing about it now? And it's obviously there was a lot of cover up and a lot of that type of deal going on, but it's just, how much trust do you have in the government, and do you really believe the files are even real at this point? It's an email. How hard would it be to get someone's old IP address email and for the FBI to manufacture emails to make it look like someone emailed him or vice versa? It wouldn't be very hard at all, and it's all electronic, so it's not like it's a paper copy or anything like that, like it would have had to been done prior. That doesn't seem like it'd be hard at all. It's like I could create an electronic fake email, no problem. And you look at some of the conspiracies around the FBI planting evidence on people and stuff like that down the line. I find it fairly plausible, but that's a leap. That's an absolute conspiracy. I'm just saying, how much can you really trust when there's not one senator in the files? Because I have my doubts. I really have my doubts in that aspect, that there's not one senator in the files. But back to it, your full faith and credit. Maybe that might be part of the reason you want to go off-grid. I live off-grid for the enjoyment, number one. But at the same time, preparedness, being prepared, realizing that the system is fake, it's collapsing, it's a simulation of some sort. Take control of your life today instead of being one of the ants in the ant farm. Anyway, that's my conspiracy ramble today, guys. Hope you enjoy the video. Not saying anything's true or false in the video or anything like that, but that was my opinion based on reading through some of the stuff, the names, the basic things. Watching the congressional hearing. Recommend watching it yourself. But yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching. God bless you all, and like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Thank you. You ready for your treat? See it? See it? See it? Nice catch. Nice catch. We'll give you one more for the show. One more, boy. See it? Nice. Very nice. Good boy. Good boy.